Our next anchor is called steel stud, and I'm looking at that here. It's just literally called steel stud. The anchor that they are referring to, and I'm looking at it on screen, so forgive me looking away, is what I call a Z anchor. And not every hollow metal person knows what you mean by this, and I almost felt like I invented it because the manufacturer Kawani back in the 90s that we dealt with didn't have an anchor like this. And by the way, this is a Gulfport. I believe their part number is FR290. It is, courtesy of Gulfport, so thank you for supplying this anchor for use in this video. I was manufacturing these back in the shop. I would use just a bunch of cutoff material. And if you have lots of little scraps like this laying around, you can turn them into steel stud anchors, or welded in steel stud anchors, or Z anchors as I would call them. What I would do is I cut that right down the center. I would then cut that right here, and then I would have a bunch of pieces that I would chop. I would cut the face off here, I would cut the face off here, and cut it right down the center, and then I get a Z anchor in the small rabbet and a Z anchor in the big rabbet. I would then take that and weld it into the frame just like that. Now what's cool about this anchor is that it's cheap, they're inexpensive, they're welded in so you can't forget to send them to the project. And you've got to be careful, but they're designed to be exactly what you need in terms of the spacing for depth and for width, meaning you have to have a 1/2 inch drywall penetration into the frame in a fire rated application. So that area here and here is the right size. This Z anchor is meant, or welded in steel stud, is meant for 5 3/4. Naturally, as you get smaller or larger frame depths, you're going to change the length of the Z anchor. But I like these because they're cheap. They get welded in. Your driver can't forget them, or you can't forget to put them on with the delivery. And plus the installers like them. They set that frame in place. They, with a powder actuated tool, fire the frame down and bring their studs up to it, and their mini anchors or their mini screws with their drywall guns, and zip, zip, zip all the way up, and they're done. Super easy. Very a very easy anchor to have. And we would only make them when we had a whole lot of abrasives left over that we wanted to use up, like, you know, tiny little 3-inch diameter abrasives that we could put into a hand tool and quickly cut these. But I mean, to be frank about it, if you're charging $2.50 each and you've got a whole mess of these, you might just stand there and make yourself some anchors. It's a hassle, but it can be done, and I've done it successfully lots of times. So this anchor has to be welded in. Okay, it's going to look, you know, something just like that. And then the studs are brought up to it. Obviously, steel studs, because you're going to have those tiny black self-drilling tech screws that are going to go right into that material. I've even had people weld heavy gauge studs right to this material, and they've specifically said, hey, I want that anchor that you weld into the throat for me. And the response is, well, I can weld in a lot of anchors. Which one are you talking about? I want to screw or weld my studs right to it. Oh, you mean the one that looks like a Z, the letter Z? Yes, that's the one. So that's what this anchor is used for. I also have an example of it here from Seco. This is their MS534. This one, you can certainly weld this into the frame as well, but it's really not intended to be welded in the frame, even though you can certainly do it. Just going to get that in place. Okay. Now this anchor is designed specifically for this installation as well. You want to do a tack weld here. You want to do one here to keep it in place. Great. Same situation. Your stud's going to come up to it, and they've created that pocket there for you to have that 1/2 inch drywall penetration, which you absolutely need. And you want to be careful with certain people, certain fire door and egress assembly inspectors, someone like me who's certified to do that work. And while you don't need a certification to inspect a fire door, we might know to stick a tool into the back side of that frame and check to see what that penetration is of drywall. If you don't have penetration of drywall, you don't have a fire-rated opening. So be mindful when you're using that. Let's switch to the screen view, and let's take a closer look at the definition from the SDI Glossary. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, here is our definition. Steel stud. I would call it a welded-in steel stud. You must weld these in. Perhaps not the Seco version, the MS534, but the FR290 by Gulfport, and any other anchor that anyone calls a Z anchor. That's what I always called it, Z anchors. A metal device secured in a frame to be used for attachment to a wall built with steel studs. What they're showing you here is obviously bottom track for steel stud installation. Proper construction at a door frame would have two studs back to back like this. That anchor has been welded in. They should have put a couple of X's here. That would have been a good way to show that. And then they're illustrating that this has been secured to the stud. Attachment to a wall built with steel studs. Mini anchors, mini screws, tack welded in. Tack welding is not unusual. We've had lots of customers say they're going to do that. And then showing the drywall come in. And then again, proper half-inch penetration for the drywall. Okay, that's the definition. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Now, in conclusion, I certainly don't necessarily recommend that you make your own anchors. That's a lot of work, actually. But should you need some work to fill, you can definitely cut those anchors and make them yourself. Weld them in, and they've never failed me as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to continue on to the next glossary definition in the SDI glossary. Let's move to the next one, called wood stud anchor. Great, let's do it now. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.